Good morning, beautiful people of the internet, and welcome once more to our Sunday special. Joined as always by the lovely Helen Chorley, the enigmatic Adam Lawrence, the hunky Piotr Rusnek, and the charming Jay Howard. I don't mind saying so myself. And today, instead of just talking about Adam's spectacular Sunday supplement, we will be talking about Property Investor News magazine, why you should be a subscriber, and more importantly, what drives us to be regular columnists of this magazine. So I think the question that really starts off is kind of why? Walk around the room and see who wants to start. I think we start in alphabetical order. That puts Mr. Lawrence first with Adam. Let's go.
Well, I can't remember how long it is since since I wrote my first article for Property Investor News, but I remember feeling a big sense of pride in being asked to contribute. That was great. I remember looking at some of the other people that contribute, and I enjoy reading their work very much. I think a lot of it. So being put in the same level as some of those people was a big honor. And I think some of the similar reasons why I write the supplement. I tend to get some direction from Richard over what he wants me to write because he knows I've got quite a broad range of interests within property and within the macro economy and all the rest of it. So I get something topical from an experienced editor to write about. Gives me a lot of freedom, doesn't sort of chip and change, and there's not all the back and forth you would get if you were doing it for, a financial broadsheet or whatever. And it gets me to organise my thoughts well, I suppose. And I get to try a few things out. I get the occasional, as I'm sure you guys will go into, I get the occasional comment on LinkedIn or whatever around and about what I've been writing about. And it just creates, not only organises my own thoughts and lets me try a few things out, it creates conversation. And conversation is always positive with the right people because it then can lead to further interactions down the line. So rarely for me, I'm going to be as concise as all of that, I suppose, and move on to Helen.
I was thinking it's going to say everything that I want to say, so I'm glad we stopped there. I mean, obviously, like very similar reasons. I love reading you guys, your stuff in there, and a lot of and I like actually a lot of the people that write for the magazine. So that's something very important for me in anything that I do, that it's working with people that I actually like. Hence, I've changed a lot of things this year. Yeah, like for me, a lot of the stuff that I do, not only just with this, but is about like self-expression. So I actually, with the stuff that I do, I try to almost like bring in kind of like the human side of property, or maybe like a different perspective. Obviously, I speak very much with like an investor voice. So I've written things about shareholder agreements, that they should be more like prenups, and kind of looking after people's money and how to chat to investors. But actually I've done some other stuff as well that's more around kind of like mindset or psychology, and I try and bring that stuff into it. So I love it for the expression, but also, like you say, Adam, that it makes people think. And that's what I like to do with a lot of my social media stuff. Like if you can just plant a little seed or make somebody look at something from a slightly different perspective and start that conversation, like that lights me up. So when you get the engagement of, oh, I read that. And sometimes like there's a delay, isn't there? Because sometimes you're like, does anybody read like my stuff? And then a few months later, somebody will comment and like, oh my God, I really liked that. And when you said this bit, that really resonated with me. It's like, oh yes, it's good. So
nice.
I think for me, I think we've been writing in the magazine for quite some time. We used to kind of leapfrog. 1 month it would be me, then it would be Piotr, then it would be me, then it would be Piotr. But I think it's almost a year now since we started, maybe a little bit over that, the auction corner, where essentially I do some kind of market update or auction principle or a general rant, and then Piotr will do something practical, like provide a case study and show people a real life example of what actually happens. and that's really interesting because it kind of it shows. Hopefully, it shows people that are reading the magazine the kind of how we both operate within the business and how we both look at things. And I really enjoy that. The rants I find quite cathartic. So it's kind of it's a public way of basically just yelling at a situation or a person. So yeah, it's I'm so proud of it. I have it on LinkedIn as a current role of mine. You know,
Oh, wow.
guest columnist of Property Investor News magazine. So yeah, I don't hide the pride for being part of the magazine.
Oh, I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, for me, it's when I started in property like in 2011. Like my boss at the time, he would always write articles for Asian Voice. It's like a Gujarati paper, and it's like you'd always write about property, and there would be like so many people coming and like commenting on things, and like it's like I was always inspired how amazing it is to like reach a lot of people without like just expressing the kind of usual day-to-day things, because he was talking about like property and deals and stuff. So and I always remember like the Monday morning deadline that he had, I think 12 o'clock, and like the scramble to get everything going. So like for us it's the same thing. Like number one, it gives us the deadline to do things and express whatever we need to express, because otherwise it's difficult to like plan those things like on our own and get them out. So that's definitely a good thing. Plus just being in the company of other people who write the articles that's a really kind of a cool network of contributors. My thing.
So I wonder if Richard realised he provides structure and he provides accountability as well. So two interesting bonuses.
Probably. I got an email this morning saying Piotr deadline for next month, 3rd of February.
Yeah, similar, and it is a good thing, I think, in terms of making sure something gets done. It also gives me a bit of freedom, I think, to not necessarily have to write about the same sort of things that I write about in the supplement every week. Although obviously I give myself free rein with all of that, and sometimes wander off on some pretty interesting tangents and rabbit holes and all the rest of it. But it's nice to have that suggestion. And also it's interesting to see what Richard thinks I can talk about with any kind of authority or value, which sometimes makes me chuckle. But it's definitely good. It's definitely good for the soul, and it definitely also, because there are slightly bigger word limits and things like that. You know, the supplement sometimes has had a tendency to go on to 5,000 words, as people have lamented, as they've been on a 3 coffee effort or whatever they call it, whereas things in Property Investor News do need to be more concise, and it does make you sharpen up a little bit as well, I think, and try and think about those several points you're wanting to get across, develop them appropriately but concisely, which I occasionally struggle with. I know you'll all disagree vehemently with me saying that, but occasionally I struggle with.
If you were to pick out of all the articles that you'd written, which one had you hoped would get the biggest impact? Like, which one did you think, right, I'm sending this out, this is the one, like this is the one people need to really read and digest?
What a great question. For me, I think it'd be one that I did on whether buy-to-let is dead, because that subject has probably been done, you tell me how many times, in the national press, in YouTube videos, in talks, in all the rest of it. And I took a bit of a different tilt to it, as I'm prone to do, and did something that I've not seen or heard anybody do before. But I don't know whether it's one of those, because it's been discussed so many times, people just looked at it and thought, I'm not going to bother reading that one this month. I don't know. It didn't generate lots of individual conversation, but then I didn't make I'm probably not the best at remarketing it when it's all done, because there's normally some social media posts. Jay normally does a very good job of pointing out. So does Helen, and sometimes I'm more like, oh, that's good. They've done the work writing that post. I'll share it, and jolly good. So perhaps I should have tried to stoke the fire a bit more on that one. I think that would probably be my one.
Nice. And Helen, what about you?
I'm just scrolling back through. So we're like straight to Trello board, and I'm going back through looking at them. I tell you, it's a slightly different question, but I will answer yours. But I'll answer a different one first in a very politician way. The one that I enjoyed writing and like I was most proud of was the Lehman Brothers one, where I talked about kind of that whole experience of losing a lot of, granted, unvested shares, but and still so theoretical money, but still something that we, as we were a couple then, like had earned. And that whole 2008 roller coaster, like at roller coaster, that was the epitome of it. So that's one that that was really close to my heart. Actually, I did enjoy the dating one as well. Investment pitching tips from the world of dating. It's just so like that. It really is to me. I think of an example on that front every week. So that was quite fun. I guess it's probably, like I say, the ones that talk about stuff from an investor's perspective. So yeah, there was that prenups for property one, where actually I gave a lot of details about Kim and Kanye's divorce, which took a lot of research. Or something entirely different, again at tangent. It's probably one of those where it's just like, developers and investors and people on the coal face, come at things from one angle, and actually just to kind of step outside of that point of view and look at it from the different angle, like the person who's handing money over, whose money you're taking, who's given their trust to you, just to be able to give that perspective. I find really, really useful, and I hope it's helpful, and the feedback I've got that it's been helpful. So it'd be one of those on the investor, from the investor perspective. Of which
what about your one, Jay?
I think my favorite one has to be the one that got the biggest reaction from one of the co-columnists. So I wrote about what happens if you fail to complete an auction.
Yay.
And Richard got an email from one of the other guys that writes regularly for the magazine, and said, right, he's terrified me. I'm never buying a property at auction. So I thought, okay, well, it's made the right kind of impact, because the article was really designed to say, look, if you're going to be in the auction, you need to be someone who's going to take action and follow through what you say you're going to do. The consequences of not doing that are actually quite dire. So I just kind of laid all of that out, and it wasn't really meant to be like anything for scare factor, because it's all factual. Though these are things that can happen if a seller is motivated to do that, or likewise if a seller fails to complete, which not a lot of people were really aware of. That was another kind of comment we got from that. Then the buyer can force specific performance of the contract and all those kind of things. So that was a really interesting and fun one to write about. What about you, Piotr? What was the favorite kind of case study you've written about?
Yeah, I think I mean, it's like, for me, the case study are like the most interesting thing ever. And I think, I mean, there was one case study that I was writing about that's like so related to exactly what you're talking about, the failing to complete. And I was like, and like it was kind of like heartbreaking on one side, because one guy who was ready, like he wanted to buy the property, put down the deposit. Not only like he didn't complete on this, he asked for more time and paid more deposit, and then he failed to complete. And on the other side, there was a guy who basically was really needed to sell this property, and we had to like reoffer it, and it was like the whole story of the ins and outs of like completing, not completing, wanting to sell, and like wanting the certainty. So like the both sides of the story, because obviously like people who buy something in the auction, they want to complete. But if you expect to get a mortgage and stuff, then it was like a really kind of like I was torn between the two sides, because I wanted the person who bought this to really buy this, like, and he wanted to buy this, and then I wanted the seller to also have the money because that he needed for other things. And it was like, how we make this happen? So that was my favorite. I mean, favorite as in like the most heartbeat generating type case study.
I think another good question would be if it was literally like gloves are off. Richard turned around to you and said, whatever, write about whatever, write about 1970s porn if you have to, just write whatever you want about anything you want. What would you write about? What would be like what would you just kind of, you want to get your teeth in? He's given you 2,500 words, which is not far off. You know, it's like an extra 30% on really what you're allowed to spend in terms of word count. What would you go completely off the reservation on?
Would we have to write it under our own name, or could it be anonymous?
It's full credit, Adam. There's no point stepping away from this. You've got carte blanche, sir. Carte blanche.
See, there's maybe a different answer to that question. That's all. Because you could do quite a cool one on. I mean, you know, if it's anonymous, it gives you the protection from being litigated against. For example, just thinking that might be interesting. So I'll have to change my answer on that basis, I think, Jay. I quite like.
But if you were to say whatever you were going to say, if it was anonymous, then everyone would know it wasn't really anonymous because it was you. So you can say it anyway.
You would have grasped yourself up in advance.
It's nothing I haven't said before, to be honest with you. So yeah, that's fair enough. That is fair enough. I think I'd be tempted to write one on the property education industry. I think that would be, and try and be maybe a little bit more charitable than perhaps I've been in the past, or let's say focus less on the negatives, which is what we do tend to focus on, and try and do a balanced piece about the whole thing and some of the good things that have come out of it. And I won't be able to resist a few side swipes, of course. That's just the nature of the beast. But a rounded piece on the property education industry, I think, is where I would go with it.
Oh, that would be juicy. Super juicy. Helen, what would be your kind of gloves off, carte blanche? What were you going for?
If it had to be property related, there are some developers that I would really, really, really love to write about. And actually, do you know what? Maybe that's actually my favorite one that I've done. The Lehman one was a bit depressing, but I did. Do you remember one called the man in the mask, or the masked man? That was about a specific property developer, so that's worth a read. But I'd like to do that. There's a lady developer I'd really like to write about as well. That would be like really interesting reading. But a few of those, you know, should we dispel some myths here, or should we dispel some kind of smoke and mirrors?
Can't imagine who you'd be talking about in either of those cases. So perhaps,
and maybe like an expose as well of, like, I don't know, behind the scenes of a reality TV show or something. I don't know. That would be quite fun.
As he said in RoboCop, I'd buy that for $1.
God, I'm sensing a bit of a theme. I'm sensing, because I'm probably somewhere between where Adam and Helen would be. I would like to talk about cross-collateralization and collective investment schemes that you're seeing a lot of these failed investments through these property traders and gurus. And it all comes down, you hear about it, you know, you're not supposed to hear about it because most people are under NDAs and all that kind of crap. But in the background, a friendly conversation over a couple of drinks, it all comes out that they took money from this project to finish the funding on this project, and they took this from this person and that from that person, and these amount of people in the deal, and they didn't do the, you know, all of that kind of stuff. I think I don't know if I'd make it person specific. I think I would probably focus on it in terms of these are things to look out for. This is the kind of language that's used. This is how you're kind of brought into the deal, and it's okay for a deal to sound good because people do good deals. But that whole cross collateralization is an absolute pisser to try and unravel. Helen's nodding. I think Helen's been in that and seen that. And
Still
also
am, still am.
and still am, right? That shows you how long these things crack on for. And the collective investment schemes are dodgy, to say the least. And some people aren't even aware that they're in them, which is even scarier. So yeah, a bit more on that rather than, I don't know if I'd sideswipe anyone. I don't know anyone well enough. I have an equal disdain for all, as Adam will find out at the judging days of the Property Investor Awards. I will take the mickey out of anyone there, and it's part of the experience.
I was hoping you were going to go for some kind of auctioneers of the UK expose or something like that, Jay, to be honest.
You have no idea what one of my latest LinkedIn posts created. I got emails from 2, phone calls and text messages from 2 more, completely misconstruing the whole idea of the article. So I had to, not that I felt I had to, but for relationship's sake, I had to kind of go into the article and say, this is what it means. I think you're being a little bit, maybe you got a bit too much sand in your crevice or whatever, but it's not what you think it is. I managed to moderate the tone and temperature of that statement very quickly. I think there would be too many sore bums if I wrote something like that without necessary provocation, which to be honest, some of them are enjoying provocation. So 50-50, Adam. I'll put that as a backup. That's a plan B. What about you, Piotr?
I would write something about like the making of the deal, but like I would want to write about some of the deals that like we never hear about, like because there are like companies that would never really share about anything, or like people in those companies that would never really share about the deals that are happening in London, and like all the off-market type deals. And I would want to write it from like maybe even like from two or three different perspectives. So like maybe one company, maybe another company. So there's like a people get a perspective of how things are done differently to achieve similar results, similar impact.
I think that's really smart because the networking scene and like Facebook groups and Instagram world, it's a really big cross section of roughly the same people. It becomes a bit of an echo chamber, and you forget that that's probably like 3% of the property industry, right? Or something stupid. You extrapolate out of there, and the things that are going on, you're quite right, that you just never hear of, or the
you never hear, and people don't even want to share about it because like there is obviously like once you share something, then it's like people have certain prejudices and certain like make up certain stories, so you have to like really share carefully because people can take it and like make it into a completely different thing. So that's why I think people like don't share about like, and also difficult to share about the deals unless you're into like an award season or something.
Yeah.
So that would be my article. I think it would take more than 2,500 words though. Once you get into it, it's yeah.
I feel Under the Hammer Volume 3 coming out with all your case studies
coming soon.
Listen, you've written half of it already. You just need to repurpose Property Investor News articles.
Yeah. And so, guys, do you think like we are under threat that at some point Richard Bowser is going to replace us with ChatGPT? And he's going to just write an article about property market in the style of Adam Lawrence.
ChatGPT says I'm limited at 8,000 words or whatever. Yeah, that's it's interesting, isn't it? Because what it does do really well is it sets out frameworks. It tops and tails things. it's pretty good. And when you give it a bit of coaching, it gets even better. So it'll be interesting to find out. But I can see that I saw the first sort of barbs being thrown at it towards the search engines are starting to ensure that AI written content is downgraded in their algorithms. Well, of course they are, because at the moment it's Microsoft who are buying a slice, isn't it? So Google specifically will be out there trying to make sure it doesn't go where they don't want it to go. Interesting that it is Microsoft that are taking that forward rather than Google. I'm sure there's been a lot of conversations going on, but then Microsoft are the ones who've probably got the most form for overpaying in acquisitions in these sorts of scenarios, I think. Will they really be able to tell it's been written by AI? I'm not sure.
Hopefully they won't do the same as they did to Skype, basically.
Well, yeah, that was one that I was thinking of. Yeah, it will be interesting to see where that all goes. It's one of those things. It's a flash in the pan of utter brilliance, and then you realise what it can't do. I think I shared something not long ago about it being asked a riddle. You know, Mike's mum has 4 kids. 3 of the kids are called Piotr, Jay, and Helen. Let's say. What's the name of the 4th kid? Now the answer's Mike, right? There's 2 versions of that riddle. The one is Mike because he said Mike's mum. The other one is what is the name of the 4th kid without a question mark, and then the answer is supposed to be what, but then you don't say Mike's mum, you say a mother has 4 children, sort of thing. And ChatGPT is very firmly saying, I haven't got enough information to answer this question. And then the reply says, but the answer is in the question. And then ChatGPT has a big argument with itself about that. So we can still offer a bit of nuance. Have you ever seen ChatGPT out at a bar collating some of these great stories about auctioneers or property developers / sociopaths or whoever else? No, you haven't, and you won't. So the case studies, the war stories, as soon as I heard, it doesn't really do forecasts and it doesn't do data back from behind a year ago, I was like, not sure I'm under threat here, really, to be honest with you.
You got your niche.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't forecast. It doesn't do a lot for investment if it doesn't forecast. That's all I'd say. Good for economic history. Not so good for forecasting. So I don't know if Richard's made any public statements about ChatGPT yet, and how good it might be at keeping to deadlines versus any of us lot. Maybe I don't know.
I think Richard has got a. If you look at the regular columnists, he does like people with a bit of flair and a bit of personality, and people who are happy to go a little bit off script to make a valid point. And I don't know how much of that you can factor into ones and zeros. So that would be interesting. That would be very interesting. There was an article my wife tagged me in yesterday on Facebook. There's content creators or these article creators are going insane at the moment because they're like, well, we're going to be replaced, and then they're kind of bringing up the arguments to not have this as a resource readily available. So they're saying people can answer exam questions or write in entire questions within essays and things like that, and who would know? Because how is it exactly plagiarized? You'd have to ask the exact question under the exact term, and then if you ask the same question twice, does it give you the exact same answer twice?
Well, if I might be afforded to go on one of my famous tangents here, this reminds me a little bit of not necessarily AI, but certainly computer coded stuff that I've been involved in the past. Where, for example, I once had use of a white label robot that played blackjack on the internet for me. There were a number of advantages that I was taking advantage of by having a robot play for me. I actually had a little boiler room style setup. So instead of using virtual machines, which is probably what I should have been doing, this was quite a few years ago though, although I'm sure I could have done it, I was using physical laptops with their own internet connections. And the bot was coded such that it would make mistakes one every X number of hands, so it didn't play completely perfectly. So that if you analysed the play, you wouldn't know it was perfect. Although, if you've seen any of the chess cheating thing with Magnus Carlsen and the American kid. The American kid plays 92% of the moves absolutely perfectly, which is so much higher than anybody else historically. That in itself is inherently suspicious. But the bot would make mistakes every so often, in a randomized fashion. The bot would go to the toilet once every randomized number of hours or minutes, which you could set. There were lots of ways in which it tried to look more human, but relating that back to ChatGPT, the problem is when I put a supplement up on the Partners in Property blog, it gives me all this feedback about how well it's written or not. Usually how well it's not written, and says like readability needs improvement, my sentence structure needs to be shorter, blah blah blah. And I just think, well, sod you, quite frankly, it is what it is. But if you might be aware of Turnitin. Certainly students will be aware of it. It's the biggest program around trying to work out what's plagiarized and what's not that's out there at all the schools and universities. And Turnitin are going to have, I'm sure, a big job on their hands. But what they might find is if the sentence structure looks a bit too good and the number of words is too orderly, and there'll be ways to sniff out ChatGPT. Then there'll be ways in which ChatGPT or its competitors then use subterfuge like the Blackjack bot did in order to avoid detection. And like everything in life, there'll be this continual game of cat and mouse that will go on that'll be quite interesting. But I think, there's certainly, I think it can be good for laying structures out of things. And I think the smart people might use it to do a first draft of something and then put their own words into it. And that would be very difficult to detect. And like always, the stupid and lazy kids will just think they can type it into ChatGPT at the last minute and get away with it, which I don't think they will. And everybody has a certain, although a lot of marking, certainly at master's level and above, is generally blind, even in term time assignments or whatever, people have certain styles. If the four of us did write that anonymous piece that I was alluding to, you would probably be able to tell quite quickly if you've read and or listened to a fair bit of our content which one of us had written what. I'm sure we could have a pretty good go at that with a degree of accuracy. So if any of us suddenly start sounding like a robot, then people are going to be suspicious, and it won't be as engaged as you said, Jay. Richard likes people who've got a bit of flair. I agree with that, and I think you need a bit of flair to get people reading, watching videos, etc. Because if it's the same as everything else, then it'll just become very stilted. So I think it's one of those typical flashes in the pan where it looks utterly amazing, but in reality, if you think you can build a website around ChatGPT knocking out content for you, I'm pretty sure you're going to be deranked and you're not going to get that much in terms of traffic. There'll be uses that make a lot of sense, but not to the tune where we become redundant quite yet.
Who wants to take up of the four of us? Who wants to play Adam's game? Who wants to see if we can write a small 500-word short story or article? We'll post all four out, and then the first person who can attach the right author to the right article gets a prize of some description. Who wants to be part of that?
That sounds like a great idea.
Just a fun little thing. Let's see if people can actually distinguish. I tell you what, we'll put 5 in there. We'll write one from each of us, and we'll get one written by Chat GPT, and
lovely.
we'll see who can pick out who is who and who is Chat GTP.
So we'll all write about the same subject, so there's no tells in the subject matter.
Yeah,
I like it.
same subject, 500 words, so a super short, super concise little thing, and we'll see who listens in and who pays attention to what we do, who can pick out who's who.
Jay, that's the problem. You think that 500 words is super short and concise.
I made that statement for 3 out of the 4 of us. So you're in the minority on this one, sir, I'm afraid.
Everyone will recognize you because it'll be 100 words.
Yeah.
About to say we'd have to break 4 of Adam's fingers to get him below 1,000 words.
Oh, that's a good one, though.
Well, I tell you what. Why don't whoever's listening now, we'll run a little thing. Just put in the comments section. Put in a couple of subjects, and we will pick a subject, and the 4 of us plus Chat GTP will write an article, and then whoever wins it, I don't know, we'll come up with something fun. We'll do something interesting. I don't know what yet, but it'll be super fun.
Well, we're gonna type into Chat GPT.
Whatever the question is.
Yeah, but that's the question. I'm gonna put the style.
Well, let's not give that away just yet. We'll operate that in the in the background.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll make it challenging. It won't be too easy.
Okay. Good. Let's do it. Let's get the suggestions in, and next Sunday. What's the prize, Jay?
I'm thinking what the prize could be. I don't know. You could have a lovely dinner with Jay in London. We can arrange that. That'll be my treat, steak dinner or whatever. We can see if someone can turn up to a Partners in Property for a free day, get the experience at whichever meeting is closest to you. I don't know. You could get 30 minutes on the phone with Helen for free, which is worth 10 times a dinner with me. So. And then we could have Piotr on a Zoom telling you how crap your deal is and what you need to do next to make it amazing. So there's and you get to pick out of those which one you want. We'll make it really fair and easy.
Okay. Wow, your creativity is on fire today.
I got to sleep till just after 6 this morning, so my synapses are firing. I'm doing well this morning.
Oh, nice one. Really good. So I can't hear.
We just heard that in. Here we go. She's come loose.
Yeah. No.
No. Don't worry about it.
Brilliant. So yeah, I don't think we'll be under threat from ChatGPT anytime soon. Hopefully.
Yeah, not just yet. Not just yet.
Cool.
But
I wonder if Richard. Yeah. Go ahead, Jay.
I was about to say I was telling my wife about it a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, "Oh, it can't be that good." So she put in a question around, I think, horse physiology or something like that, because she used to mark papers. So she did this degree and things like that, and then afterwards, because she got such a high score consistently, they asked her to come back and mark other people's papers. So she did that for a little while. So she put in the question, it came back, she goes, yeah, I would have given that 4 marks. So it just goes to show, like in certain things where there is, pre-existing long-standing data, it is actually a very intelligent bit of machinery.
Well, it passed the MBA exam, passed the bar exam, passed the medical exam. So I'm wondering how many people are going to be now sitting with like glasses and those things with camera, and then having a little thing in the ear, and then someone seeing what they're seeing, typing things, and then just following. What do you think?
Well, it may have passed the MBA exam, but was it the Dean's Scholar? That's what you've got to ask yourself.
If it's not the Dean's Scholar, it's not worth diddly squat, in my opinion. That's personal. That's personal.
Oh, Yeah.
That almost felt like a personal attack. Like it passed the law exam. I was like, oh Jesus, okay, yeah, that wasn't a walk in the park for me. So
No.
Yeah, but you were about 14 at the time, so.
Oh dear.
No, what I was trying to say before my mic so rudely muted me, was I wonder if we'll be able to tell whose little snippet each is and which the Chat GPT is. That would be interesting.
I tell you what
Maybe
would
we
make
don't
it.
disclose that.
I tell you what would make it super fun is if we got Richard Bowser in on this. If we turned around to him and said, "This is kind of like a bit of a social style experiment." So the subject will have to be around property and then we'll put it into the magazine, and whoever gets the order correct is in the chance of winning one of said 4 amazing prizes.
You could do it more than once. I was going to say you could do it in the style. We could do it once where we do it in our own style. Then we could do it where we try and do it in the style of, so a bit like Secret Santa. You know, you do it in someone else's style. That could be quite.
What I was thinking. Like, if we're trying to like be anonymous, we all have to play down our own style.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
then, is it an insult or a compliment if somebody thinks that your bit of text is the Chat GPT one? Like, I'd be a little bit insulted.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. I think we're onto something. I think this is good fun.
I think the winner of this between all of us gets a free therapy session with to deal with the fallback. Oh, nice one. Well, that's good. I'm looking forward to the suggestions. Hopefully, it won't be too difficult. It won't require perfect English. I'll drop in like a word that I'll just Google out of the dictionary also.
Oh. We were on a stag do, me and Piotr and a couple of others, this last weekend, and it must have been like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And Piotr was like, "Tell me exactly what's going through your mind at the moment." And one of the words has to be a word I've never heard of before. So I'm drunk at this stage, and I still pulled this word out. He goes, "This is an amazing word." Yeah, so
Jay was falling asleep, so I had to get him engaged. And I thought the best way of getting him engaged is come up with a super unusual word.
Love it.
Oh, amazing!
I think let's put a close to this because my mind is already starting to think. I want to see what the suggestions are. I want to start writing this. I want to get this going. I think this could be a lot of fun.
Nice one. No, that's really good. So I think it's been a great session. And if anyone's got still wrapped in the foil version of Property Investor News, open it up, give it a read, and looking forward to the suggestions. And when are we writing this article? By next week, we'll come up with a deadline.
Yeah. I think if it can't go into February's edition, I think we should approach him, do our normal articles, and then ask him if he can create space specifically. So it'll have to be in by the 3rd of Feb or whatever.
Okay.
Real pressure.
Right,
it's going into print, so we need people's responses as soon as possible on this.
Okay. Nice, Jay. Cool. Thank you, guys, and thanks everyone who's listening. And back next week. And have a great day. Have a great Sunday.
Thanks, everyone.
Great day, guys.